Welcome to another episode of Courageous Conversations. Today in conversation with us is Jonathan Wesley. Jonathan's a musician, producer, arranger, and in general, a creative person. Jonathan, we all agree that when we said that God made us in His image, one of the things that He gave us is the ability to be creative. He is the creator. He is the original at creating things. So He's given us that ability to be creative. But as a musician, as an artist, what would your personal definition of creativity mean?
I feel it's doing something that comes most naturally to you. I find that when I work on music, like say I'm sitting at the piano, for me, like time can just pass by and I don't even know, and it doesn't feel like it's a pressure or it's something that I'm trying to do. It just comes naturally. It's like, okay, this is what I was made for. And when you do something like that, I feel that's when you're most creative, because you're not really thinking. It's not a very analytical, logical thing what you're doing. If you're painting or if you're sculpting or whatever you're doing, it's more of you being in touch with your most inward person and bringing that out, expressing that in an artistic way. So creativity is, I feel, you being yourself and doing what comes most easy.
Have there been times when you didn't feel creative?
Yeah, a lot of the times. Yeah.
So how does one last that period and not give up?
Because I feel it is something that you have to just keep working towards. There are some times where you feel very creative. There are some times that you just don't feel like you can do anything. Sometimes I just tell my wife, I don't think I can work today. Probably there are too many things, or you've tried and you feel exhausted, because it's also very taxing when you're trying to be creative, and when you have to deliver on certain projects, and you don't feel that that magical idea, then it can get a little stressful. But the solution is not to try. It is to just be there and just keep trying. Like there are many artists like John Mayer that says he writes fantastic songs, but he writes a song a day at least, and probably in the whole year he would have like 2 or 3 hit songs. So if he has to try that hard, and then guys who are just starting out, we got to really work hard.
Right. Now, being creative doesn't come easy to everyone. One, probably because most of us believe that there's no skill in us, there's no creativity in me. I'm just an ordinary Joe, so nothing comes to me. But I do believe there's some gift in all of us to be creative. And creativity doesn't mean you have to do great big things. It could just be the way you handle a situation or a problem differently. Artistic creativity is a different thing altogether. Now, I know it's a great way to connect with people, bridge gaps when you are an artist, when you get creative, because people appreciate that. How much of a distraction or a temptation is it to do stuff that people like, as opposed to doing what you feel is creative, is what you feel, like you said, comes naturally to you?
How much of a temptation is it?
How much of a temptation is it to give people what they want to hear, not what's coming from within you?
I think it can be a pressure at some points, but I never personally, I don't feel genuine when I do something like that. So I would try as much as I can to convince either the client or who I'm working for to say that, hey, I feel we should head in this direction because this is what this form or this music or this art needs. But if they just persist and say, hey, no, I want to go this way, then sometimes you just have to give in to what people want. But at all times, I don't think there has been times where I've been forced to do something which I don't agree with creatively, because I think when people see, okay, this is what this person has in mind as a musician or as someone who's producing the song or mixing the song or whatever, I think they really see the magic in that. So, though I think there are temptations and pressures, um, you know, there are ways to go through it. Yeah.
Now, many people also try to push this argument that anything that's creative or artistic should only be used in God's service. It should not be used anywhere else. I personally also do not agree with that, because then anything that we do in life should only be done in church or at the feet of God. But that's not possible.
Yeah.
So, how has your balance been? Because this is your profession, this is your bread and butter, but you're also a Christian by faith, and you do indulge whenever necessary in church and worship music. So, has this ever happened to you? So people try to push you and say, you have to stop doing this.
Oh, yeah. Definitely, yeah. All, like, you know, from my childhood, I've had that pressure, because I think my background is a very traditional Christian family, and that pressure of doing music only for God. God has blessed you with the talent, so you do it only for God. Was always like something that I struggled with. And I've had conversations with a lot of people, especially when I was growing up, asking, you know, musicians older to me who are already in, you know, in music, asking them, hey, what do I do? Is there, should I just do only the things that are sacred, or is there space for anything else? So I think once I understood how big God is and His plan for mankind, then things started to settle. I think as long as I was just trying to say, okay, let me do things that are like a, you know, a checklist. Okay, if I do this, then I'm a good Christian. But if I don't understand the heart of God, till then I was very confused. So once I understood, hey, that we are all made as creative people, there is a gifting and an anointing in all of us, and we can use that gifting and calling to impact the world in whatever way that we can. So like you said, it's crazy to think that, hey, you have to use everything, all your talents only in church, or, you know, we wouldn't have any workforce even. So once I had kind of settled that in my heart about who I am, what is the heart of God, and what is He calling me to do. Like for me personally, my vision is to use music to inspire and influence. And I remember just coming up with those two words a few years back, and that's just been the kind of foundational standpoint. So whatever I do, I just think of, okay, how can I inspire, how can I influence people for the kingdom of God? So
yes. Now I know, as soon as someone says I'm an artist or I'm a creative person, that kind of breaks the ice with new people, new communities much easier, because they're interested in what you're doing, they're impressed sometimes. But the word that you use when you're saying impacting, inspiring, now that will go beyond the initial first meeting or so, for you to leave an impact on someone because of your kind of work, and especially if it is not really faith-based. You've done some work, you've done some excellent work. How have you seen that really impact someone? Do you have a story of someone who's come back and said, nothing to do with faith, just your music inspired me to do something, not do something, to start something, give me hope?
yeah, I've seen that having influence or inspiring someone doesn't really strictly have to do with music for me. I'm using music as a tool, but more often than not, people are impacted through just relationship, are impacted through what they see, how you are, your character. And so I've had people come up to me and say, hey, I knew that you worked on this music or this thing or that thing, that project was really cool what you did, but talking to you and knowing you, that has had more of an impact for me. So keep doing what you're doing and stuff like that. So yeah, that's a realization I've had for quite a while now, saying that, hey, it's not only the music. Yes, your music that you do can impact, can influence, but it's who you are and how you are in wherever God places you in everyday situations. your character, your humility, and just your love for God and how you serve Him. That is what breaks through. It's finally love. I don't think it's if you just stand up and preach. I don't know if that's going to be the only way you can impact.
I'm not surprised, because the person that one is will show through their work. So you look at the work and you say only a person who's clean-hearted or who's dedicated, who runs after excellence, or who's lazy can do this kind of work. So one look at the work, the person pretty much have an idea of who's behind it. Have there been any project in anything that you refused to do because it didn't go with your faith, because of your belief system?
Multiple.
And how difficult was it for you to make a decision in those cases?
Some were really difficult because they were really big projects, and it seemed to be quite costly to say no. And not so much for the career impacts that it will have, but I think it's tougher to break a relationship, or at least think of if I say no, will this person be upset? So there have been multiple times where I've had to pray about it for a while, wrestle, talk to people, and then get back to the person and say, hey, I'm not comfortable with this. And in some cases it's been great, like the people understand and say, hey, no problem, let's look at something else. In some cases it's not been great, where there has been a kind of a break in the relationship, and that for me is more tougher to deal with, but gladly so far I've seen that people come around. They probably, for that instant, it was something that was painful, but right now I can say that even people that I have kind of said, hey, I'm concerned about this, they've come around and they believe in me as a person, and at least respect the stand that I've taken.
Yeah, I've noticed when I asked the question, you spoke about some of the things that you let go, and when you were counting your losses, you didn't bring in money at all. The first thing and the only thing that you've mentioned is relationships, letting go of relationships. And I know that can be difficult because you're emotionally invested in it over a period of time, and for one disagreement, if that is put in danger, it really tugs at your heart. But eventually, let's say even in cases where these people did not come back to you, at least for that project, or worse, never for any work at all, did you feel compensated in your heart that what I have, which is your faith, knowing that you were true to what you believe in and you didn't try to cut corners, so your heart is clean? Do you feel that has balanced out the loss, where you're saying, well, eventually I am still better off not having done that?
Yeah, I think it's more a question of obedience for me, because whether it balances out and everything kind of like checks in at the end of my life, I'm not sure whether that will happen. But when you, like it says in the Bible, when you try to save your life, you'll lose it. But when you lose your life for my sake, Jesus says, you will find it. So I've taken more refuge in that personally, because I know that I'm taking a step in the right direction, and I know that God kind of orchestrates everything and is in control of every situation. And even when you make tough decisions like that, it's not a loss for me. It's not a loss for me, because God can bring about anything. He can work miraculous things and change the future in any way. So also one more thing I've realized is that sometimes I feel as believers we try to take, I think, decisions that will show that, hey, we are really believing, or we just try to take the decisions to feel proud that, hey, I'm taking a stand. But I've seen that kind of that's more rooted in pride rather than rooted in obedience. So because growing up, it was like, no, I don't smoke, I don't live that kind of life, I'm a Christian, I don't drink, and stuff like that, which I don't think are the main issues in life. It's about how you live, for me, what your personal life and your relationship with God is. So for me, in saying no to these projects or these relationships, is more about obeying and understanding the Father's heart of why you're saying no. It's not about just the mantle of, okay, I've said no, I've given up this for God, and feeling proud of that. It's more about living a life that pleases God. Yeah.
Fantastic. Jonathan, thank you so much for your time with us. We hope that you'll have loads of projects that agree with you and your faith that come by, and that you're a blessing to everybody who's listening to your projects and the people who work with you. That's Jonathan Wesley with us in conversation. Go and look him up and find some music that he's produced. Enjoy.